I'm standing in the parking lot in one of my favorite places to come. It is White Sands National Park. Right after G Camp left in 2019, this area went from being a national park, from being a national monument to being a national park. And it is well deserved, because what I'm surrounded by is not snow, but it is the mineral gypsum. And the park deserves this status because every park is a little bit unique. And this is the largest dune field made of gypsum in the world. And so it's worth protecting and it's worth preserving. And I'm excited to share a little bit more about how this place formed and touch some gypsum. So I'm a New Yorker. I love my Long Island beach, like Jones Beach and Long Beach. And the sand there has a lot of potassium feldspar, which is like pinkish or whitish quartz, which could be a bunch of colors. Potassium feldspar. I've been to, with G Camp, Great Sand Dunes National Park, which is an amazing place. Check out the video on that on my YouTube channel, Azar Sciences. But the minerals there have a lot of metal. And so it's really, really dark in color. And I've been to Hawaii. Talk about dark. That sand was basically black and brown. But what's so cool about white sands is its name. The sand here is all made out of the mineral gypsum. Similar to if you've ever had a cast or the walls in your house, which might be drywall, all made out of this mineral gypsum. And this area, if you can see out in the distance, was made as this was once an ancient sea full of gypsum. And then through plate tectonics, there was the uplift of the San Andreas Mountains. And then this is millions and millions and millions of years ago, a couple hundred. And then tens of millions of years ago, there was activity that dropped the Tularosa Basin. And so no rivers flowed out. All that water flowed in here. And that's what helped to bring a lot of these gypsum deposits further into this area. And the mountains that are around us are also made out of gypsum and limestone. And what happened a long time ago was through glaciation. The glaciers were in this area, which is crazy to think that glaciers could have been in an area like New Mexico at some point. And the melted water helped to bring more of this gypsum into these fields. And then more recently, rain and weather has picked up that process. So this is an incredible place, and I hope you are looking around as I'm speaking and just sharing a little bit of a background and looking at all the mountains that surround this beautiful place, looking down at the ripple marks and the footprints. Speaking of which, these footprints are not the famous footprints that you might have heard about. And if you haven't heard about it, go look it up. What's really cool is that somewhere here, home of the White Sands Missile Range, some stuff having to do with Oppenheimer. I want you to go look that up because it's really cool what kind of things they've done in this area with bombs. But even before that, this area actually was inhabited and traveled by things like the North American camel, the giant sloth, and some other animals, including our ancestors. And what is very interesting about them is so they would use the lake, and the plants were very different, but there's famous fossilized footprints here in White Sands National Park that they're currently doing some research on. And it's very controversial because the radioactive dating and all the different ways that they can use to measure the the ages of where those footprints are based on some of the seeds that are being found. It actually puts people in North America about 10,000 years earlier than originally thought. And so those are some really cool, famous footprints that I highly recommend going to check out. So let's check out some of the sand and get a better understanding of White Sands National Park and what makes it so unique and special. So 250 million years ago, we have some tectonic activity. 30 million years ago, we have a basin that forms like this. Again, looking around, we see this giant bowl, all these gypsum deposits. We have this ancient lake, Lake Otero, and it's deposited all this gypsum. And as climate changes, the lake evaporates, and we get these beautiful gypsum crystals. And that still happens today, where water and rain and everything brings that gypsum and replenishes the field here, and then wind is what breaks it down. Now, what's really great about the sand is, well, today is a pretty mild day, relatively speaking. It's about, I think it's about 90 degrees. Let's check my watch. It's about 90 degrees. The last time I was here, it was 112. And what's amazing about this sand is it is cool to the touch. So in great sand dunes, the sand can get to 140 degrees, but here, because of its light color, it's really reflective, and so it stays cool. To the point where I have to wear sunglasses because it is very bright. And on top of that, I had to put sunscreen on the bottom of my chin because the light could reflect off and actually give you a sunburn from below. So places you would normally maybe not think to put sunburn, you think twice about. And if I look really carefully at the little sand grains, and so one of the things that I think always gets forgotten is that sand, there is no such thing as sand. When we go to the beach and we see sand, well, what is sand? Now, most sand looks like what we see at typical beaches, with that tannish or that reddish color. But think about it, there are places that have green sand and black sand and different colors. And so then what actually makes sand sand? Well, it turns out it is the size. The size is what makes something called sand. And so sand has an upper limit of about 0.2 centimeters and a minimum of about 0.06. And so any grains that fall into that, we consider sand. Now, specifically the gypsum here, it actually has these tiny little pointy parts. It almost looks, and this is something that was told to me by, I believe, a park ranger, that it kind of looks like little tiny sticks of bubble gum stacked together because of the mineral cleavage in the gypsum. And so it likes to grow into these forms, and when it gets broken down by the wind and then transported here, sometimes it can get rounded out. But for the most part, what you get are these cool little pointy sticks of bubble gum. Towards my group, so I'm going to be a little bit more quiet. But right now, Dr. Pope might have dug a little trench so we could see the cross bedding. And so as wind changes direction, it will create these beds, and you can figure out which way the wind is migrating. Now, in North America, the United States, we have westerlies, so generally blowing from the west to east or southwest to northeast. These dunes don't move as quickly as the great sand dunes because here the moisture stays in these dunes, and so the moisture holds it together a little bit better, and so they might move only a few feet. We also don't get the wide array of dune types that we do in Great Sands National Park. Another fantastic stop. So let's walk over and see what's going on. What's also really great about this sand is because gypsum is so soft, and I know I'm going to be, getting a lot of hate from Long Islanders that are like, how could you hate sand and hate the beach? And it's so gritty and annoying. But what's amazing here is the sand is so soft that it actually doesn't bother you when it gets inside of your shoes or, in your teeth, because it's got such a low hardness. It basically just dissolves and kind of gets crushed pretty easily. Let's go look at the hole.
Or, Trevor, are you thinking like underwater, where you can see the ripple effects, like in the bottom of the lake?
Yeah, so it's weird because we're gonna use some of the same stuff again. So like Permian, there's this stuff. Yeah. No. Yeah.
The structure is similar. I know but the direction changes. There you got rippling going up and out. There you go.
So to walk away from that a little bit, so you could see some of that bedding that was starting to form as I stuck the pole down there and got the camera pretty close. And again, those are just those layers that would eventually, if everything stopped moving and more stuff just got deposited, that would start to compact. In a nutshell, that is White Sands National Park. I hope you enjoyed your little virtual field trip. You need to make this a real field trip and come check this out, because it is something like you've never seen before. So thank you so much for stopping by. Check out Azar Sciences on YouTube. And again, my name is Dr. Scott Azar, and thanks for coming on this trip with me.